ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Whining On. My name is Matthew Bowden, the Incorrigible Rogue, and we're here out amongst the beautiful sky today. Today we have, I use the word legend quite a lot when we do these interviews, but I think it's never been more appropriate than today. Today we have Jon Mckenna. Jon, please say a little bit about yourself.
Hi. I think I'd sort of look upon myself first of all as an actor. I'm also a boxing coach, and I was one of the very first street performers down at Covent Garden when it opened in 1980. Although I had actually performed there in the 70s with the Incubus Theatre Company. And also in 1966, when I was a good amateur boxer, I actually boxed at the centenary celebration of Covent Garden. So I must be the first performer ever at Covent Garden. So I was in 66.
Wow.
I trained as an at East 15 acting school, which is sort of a method acting school. And
well, Jon, just before we get into too much of the detail, and just before we get into the nitty gritty of it, I'd just like to ask you, why go on this path? Why become I mean, I know you're a boxing coach as well, and we'll touch on this as we go through. And if you think that's important to the answer, then please, by all means, talk about that. But why go on this journey? Why become an entertainer? Why become somebody who works in the arts?
What, you mean after boxing? Or?
Well, just why lead the life you led?
I was right from a kid. I was born in Elm Park, which is like near Hornchurch, just after the Second World War. So an air raid sirens used to go off once a day. So and all the people, my neighbours, they'd all been part of the, they'd been there during the war. So there was a very sort of close relationship between people you don't get today, I think, in places. And as a kid, I was always seemed to be the one that when we go to Saturday morning pictures, I don't know if you know what that is. That was cinema for kids. As you go along on a Saturday morning, I go along on that, and then when we came out afterwards, we'd stroll back for about 2 or 3 miles through parkland and open land, and we'd kind of reenact the stories. But I was always the one that was the director, if you like. Talking about the ages 6 and 7 or whatever. So whenever we came away from the Saturday morning pictures, most of the kids kind of gang, if you want, because we normally split into 2 groups, but because of the drama that was portrayed on the screen. So from a very early age, I was very, very interested in performing. I mean, I was doing it naturally, playing with the kids. By the time I came out of school, I'd been completely conditioned to getting a proper job and getting a job for life, because my parents' generation had gone through the Great Depression. My father was born in 1912, so he'd gone right through the Great Depression, and he got a job at the Ford Motor Company, sort of job for life. So that was the atmosphere which I grew up. So when I first left school, I had to get a proper job, which was in the City of London in an office. I can just remember in the office, total claustrophobia. It was completely bloody well free. Every day was agony. So I managed to do it for a year, and then, unbeknownst to my parents, I signed up for the Merchant Navy. I just want to get away and adventure. So I signed up for the Merchant Navy, and the first ship that they gave me was the old Queen Elizabeth, not the one that's flying around now, but the old one. So 1966. No, what was that? 1964. That was 17 years of age, and found myself on a ship down in New York. It was incredibly would have been about 2 months after the Beatles had first been there. So New York was mad about anything that was English. And I was a mod at the time. I remember arriving with the mod gear on. There was another mate, Ryan. He was a mod as well. And we got chased. We got chased down Broadway by girls screaming. Mighty Brian and knelt out because we were outside the Opera House looking at what group was happening. Billy J. Kramer, the Otis, the Yardbirds, all those kind of people. This cluster of girls came around, saw that we were English, obviously from the fact they didn't have those in New York at that time. And I said, you guys English? And he said, yeah. Are you in a pub group? And Brian said, yeah. He said, we're the Yardbirds. It's just mad after that. Oh, can I just see? Can I hold your hand? We ended up running and we barricaded it off. We ended up legging it down Broadway. And that was, I'd been in New York for about an hour. So I thought, this is pretty good.
Wow.
So I did all that. So I managed to escape office work for a bit. But I worked on the ships for about a year, went down to South Africa. Loved it, but I had a girlfriend back home, so I went back to the girlfriend and I got a job in the office again. So my escape from that was, I've been doing Amazon, I've been stopped, so.
John, can I ask you one quick favour? Can I get you just to turn to the light? The light's coming from here. Is that okay? Yeah. I'll give you a hand while you're doing it, mate. You crack on.
Okay. All right. Maybe if I was in here.
I'm sorry, John. Please, as you were.
Anyway, so my favourite I just really started interested in I got fed up with it. Sales what I was doing. And then I somebody in the West End starring in the girly country. And I didn't even know there was a drama to it. And she told me that she thinks this drama called all these people and where they wanted really well. I'm looking over my shoulder.
Yeah, I'm over here. I'm basically sat slightly behind it. You can see he keeps glancing over to me at this time. I'll be honest, John, the sound quality's a little bit lapsed. I'm struggling to hear you a little bit. So I'm going to try and do one last thing very quickly. So at the moment we have so we've gone into John's garden to record this because we've had some issues trying to get John's tech to work, and so now we're in John's garden. What's happening at the moment is one of the people who lives with John is asking what we're doing in the garden. I assume we're okay. Cool, lovely. So we'll get back onto it now. Hopefully, I can hear a little better. I think you're going to have to speak up a little, John. I'm actually tempted to switch over. I'm going to give you the headphones and this, and I'm going to take the phone and chat with you because I'd rather people heard you clearly than me clearly.
All right, okay.
Is that okay?
All right.
So, John, can you hear me?
Okay. Say again?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you with my ears. I can't hear you through these too well. Oh, can I take these off because they're interfering?
You can hear me there. So, John, keep on just so you get an idea of where the time difference is. So we'll make it quick. So I had so many technical issues with the interview so far. I just like to say. So you said you thought you boxed in Covent Garden in the 60s, 1968.
No, it was the boxing. That was 1966.
1966.
Yeah.
And so when you back, so you went to the Navy, came back,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch because this is squeaking such a lot that it's probably easier if I just listen to you live over there at the back of the garden. Why don't you come a bit closer? Why don't you just come closer? Oh, okay.
You talk to the screen.
All right, okay.
So when you came back from being in the Merchant Navy,
yeah,
that was when you thought about performing, right?
Not immediately, but it had so kind of I don't know, provoked the gypsy, if you like, in my soul that taking a straight job was a very, very poor option, and I knew I wouldn't be able to do it for long. I did it initially because I had a girlfriend and pressure from parents and stuff like that, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do it for a lifetime. And then so I switched from that to doing sales, and I enjoyed that more because I was out and about and selling, and that's when I met an actress, and she told me about East 15. I didn't even know there was such a thing as drama schools, and I went, wow. I said, I'd really like to act. And she said, well, why don't you audition for them? She said, because I reckon you'll do quite well, because East 15 was for it was for working class people. It was the first drama school that was targeting working class people. So and I was the ex-champion of the East End of London, so she said it's got to work kind of quite well for you when you go along, and it did. So I got in there and I loved it. I loved I loved the first year. The first year was bloody brilliant. We had this guy called Roger Hodgman, who was from Australia, an amazing tutor, and it was all about kind of just really, really, really getting a handle on a character. Like, first of all, physically, you'd imagine the character in your head, and you try and think of somebody who it might be like. It might be like one of my cousins, but also it reminds me of somebody that I used to see at a bus stop. Well, I didn't know, but I kind of had an idea of what they might be like. So it'd be a bit of that, a bit of this, and then the first thing you'd do would he'd encourage you to sort of go away from the school to somewhere where people didn't know you and just practice walking about like that, because you'll feel a bit, you feel a bit odd when you start not walking the way that you would walk, or sitting down the way you would walk. So you do that first of all. Then the next stage is to communicate with people. So I'd go into a cafe and I'd order a cup of tea. Now I kind of had the guys being from the north, so I've got to speak with a northern accent. Now, although we can do it mucking around, when you're doing it for real in a cafe, you feel extremely fraudulent doing it. I'll have a cup of tea, please. And have you got any beans on toast? What kind of bloody cafe is this? But which is easy when we're kind of mucking around doing it. But when you're doing it for real, you think, I'm going to be found out here. So having done that, I figured that the character that I was going to be playing, I figured he'd be the kind of guy that would frequent sex shops. Now, I'd never been in a sex shop in my life, but by this time I developed his walk, because I based it on a much smaller guy. So smaller guys tend to walk bigger, So I was doing his walk, and like the first time I really started doing it down the street, it had a completely bizarre effect, because people started getting out of the way, because
it wasn't a little guy doing it. It was me. I'm sort of 6'2" and I've got a broken nose, and I'm barreling down the street. So they're not reacting to me the way that they would react to this guy. But I thought, wow, that's really interesting, you know. Then I went in the sex shop and very confidently said, you know, have you got any dildos? And the guy, I think because of the strength of the characterization, by this time it's rooted. And by the time I've done all that, you get back into the rehearsal room, you've got a character that can actually live and do it, you know. So I really, really love these 15 for the first year. But the second year, there was a lot of trouble at the school. They were trying to get rid of old tutors who'd been there since the beginning and blah, 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 blah. And so I left halfway through that. They slung me out because I was being too much of a pain in the arse. I wasn't cooperating with the so-called new teachers that they brought in, who were crap compared to the people that had left, you know. So, but that was enough. And then I left there, got a job straight away with. It was like I loved it really. It was a really nice little job. It was a theatre and education company, and they were taking plays around the schools in Wales. So it meant that I got to see. I got to see Wales in a way that I've only ever passed through it before on the way to Ireland, you know. So I was there for something like 4 months or something doing. We were doing The Water Babies by Charles Kingsley, but it was brilliant because we go up into the mountains and we play in like this tiny little village, and the headmaster or the headmistress would come out and talk to the school in Welsh first, and then she'd do the same speech again in English. So we have the travelling players with you with us this afternoon, and they're going to be performing Charles Kingsley's The Water Babies, blah blah blah. I thought, wow, this is really good. And I remember one day we were at the have you heard of Aneurin and Bevan? Have you heard of Aneurin and Bevan? Have you heard of Aneurin and Bevan? I can't hear you. Yeah.
No, I've not heard.
Oh, he was a very, very famous Labour politician. I think he almost became Prime Minister. He was like that kind of standard, yeah. It was him that kind of got the national health going, you know, the thing that we clap for on Thursdays. But anyway, we were at his school performing, and for the scene changes, I was doing this little comic thing, you know, to keep the kids entertained while we changed the scenes. I put on a white coat, and on the back it had Mr. Shifted, and I had like a Laurel and Hardy bowler hat. And we just do funny things with, if I take a painting off the wall, I'd kind of knock on the flat, knock, knock, knock. Then I'd hold the, I can't see it. Then I'd hold my arm up above the flat, so that you know, someone would take it, but an arm would come around the side, you know, and all the kids were going, it's not on the top, it's not on the top, you know, it's round the side, it's round the. So I'd turn around, and then so I'd put the thing to the side, and then the hand would come over the top, that kind of stuff. Suddenly the headmaster comes in, doesn't he? Right, you lot, hands on heads, you know. Oh, what? Fingers on lips, you know, hands on heads. I thought it was coming back, they were doing that. Hands on heads, march them out of the classroom, all of them, back to their classroom. Bloody Nora, you know. And then about 10 minutes went by, and then he brought them back in. And when they came back in, these kids, they had their fingers on the lips. And then they got there, they sat down again. He said, right, he said, we're going to carry on with this play. He said, but you're going to be on your best behavior, and you're going to be absolutely silent, right? You understand? Okay, now enjoy yourselves. Yes, headmaster. So we left. So we carried it on. And at the end, we got invited into the have tea or coffee or something, refreshments in the headmaster's study. And this little theatre and education company was run by two women, and you know, feminism was in its kind of early day there. So me and the other actor were very sensitive towards that, but the whole company was, you know. And we get into the fact that their clients are schools, you know. So the headmaster invites us through, you know. We sort of shoot a look to them. Do we have to? And it's kind of yeah, we need to. It's you know, it's good politics. So being good politicians, we all go into the headmaster's office, and he says, right, he said, What would you what would you like, ladies? Tea or coffee? And like when he said ladies, that registered. Well, I kind of looked at Dennis, the guy I was working on, shot the girls a look, and but the girls had to be, good, so they swallowed the fact that you can call them women. What would you like, ladies? Tea or coffee? And they said, coffee, please, headmaster. And then it was, I expect you men would like something stronger. It was just, we had, it was so difficult to kind of not.
Did he not take you back to the smoking room?
No, we're in his office, so just for a laugh, we said, whiskey, please, headmaster. The girls were like shooting arrows at us. Anyway, cut long story short, he refers back to the incident where he cut in, hands on heads, marched them out of the classroom. Hope you didn't mind what I did earlier on. He said, but let me explain this to you. And he had this big iron safe, turned the wheel on it, opened the door, and brought out this big green leather-bound book that had punishment. You've disappeared, but shall I carry on? Yeah. This green leather-bound book, which had punishment book written on it. And he opens this punishment book out, and he finds it a page, and it's 1912, and he turns it round, and I can still remember the actual words that he used. Okay, so he's got his finger on this book, and he's got, for absconding April. Oh, this is the date as well. April the 15th, 1912. That's when the Titanic sank. So April the 15th, 1912. For absconding from the playgrounds and trespassing on adjacent fields, an iron bevan, 2 cuts on each hand. He said, you know what? He said, that was the only entry in the punishment book for that boy. Do you know why? Because he understood discipline. It was nuts. So anyway, after that, it was great fun going around Wales. I really loved it, and we were on equity money. It was full equity money, which in those days was £30 a week, which was a lot of money back then. And like having sort of gone through drama student days and not having much dosh, it was really nice to get paid good money and be touring around. I thought, life couldn't be sweeter. So that job finished, and I auditioned for Incubus, which is a legendary theatre company, and I got with them, and then started touring, doing black comedy, and very, very sort of. Oh, I can see you in the background. Is there a problem?
Ignore me. It's fine. Crack on, mate.
I ignore you. Yeah. So so I joined Incubus, and there was enormously kind of in your face comedy, and they'd always go out with 2 pieces. There'd be the play that the first one we did was called The Cool, which was Koll, and that was sort of a piss take of the Scientology cult. We had a couple of songs in there as well. Very, very funny, written by Paddy Fletcher, who's like a fringe theatre legend. It was his company. We'd also take a pub show version of it out into the, on tour with us. So we do pub shows, and that was really interesting because that's closer to kind of the street. That's closer to street theatre, because was that what? Well, what we did was with The Cool, Alternative Arts, who were operating in Covent Garden in the 70s. They asked us if we would do our pub show version in the street at Covent Garden. So that was the very first performance or theatrical performance that I did in Covent Garden. That was doing a pub show version of The Cool. That was Paddy Fletcher, Incubus, Jeff Hughes, me, Diana Goodhand did it, and that was really interesting because normally we've been playing art centres and places like that where you've got kind of a more kind of cultured or more kind of cultured audience. But with this, it was these were kind of real people, and of course you didn't have an audience at first, so we thought, oh, this is weird, so we sort of started the performance as it was, and that felt odd because there weren't many people there, and then they started to gather around. But we kind of figured pretty quickly that we have to start making our setup much more theatrical and interesting. So when we were putting up the flats and getting all the stuff ready, we kind of turned that into a performance as well. So we actually started with an audience, which grew, and so that was my first one. It was about 1976, I think. Wow, no, 77.
And so that's an example of you learning the craft. That's an example of you slowly starting to develop the ideas of street performance, right?
Yeah, that would have been the first thing. The first kind of step away from like traditional theatre, the first kind of step away from traditional theatre was actually doing the pub shows, because people in pubs, you kind of go into a pub, they're not like Covent Garden, they're not an audience, except that you can turn them into one quicker.
Yeah. And so when did it start developing into more street?
That wasn't until 1980 when.
So there's a number of years between.
Well, we did that one, and then later on we did when we went on tour with a different piece about 8 months later, called Soon Maybe Boogie. We did the same thing with that. We also did it in Covent Garden. And then after I left Incubus, I formed formed the company. Me and one of the ex-Incubus guys, Peter Leaborn, brilliant writer, great, funny, completely off the wall performer, highly intelligent. We formed this company called the Lemmings. So we got asked again, it was alternative arts, could we do something down there in the summer? So we did stuff down there. So I've been like every summer since 77, I've been doing something down there in terms of performance. During that period, Covent Garden was being developed, so the builders were in there. And
can you set the scene of the place a little bit when you began working there in 77, and just say what the place was like, the atmosphere, the people?
Right. Well, in 1977, what was happening is a lot of building work. So there was excavation stuff going on, and they were working on actually working on the interior of the market. So a lot of building going on. Mainly it was kind of people that worked in the area that were there. You wasn't like kind of tourists or people coming through for that. Plus it was still kind of a working fruit and veg market as well. So
and did you see from 77 to 80 was the closing of the fruit market then and the vegetable market?
I can't remember when it exactly closed, but the more the building work develops, they went over to South London. In fact, it was only there for a little while, the fruit and veg market, and then it moved off.
And so at that time, you're not seeing yourself as a street performer; you're seeing yourself as a theatrical worker, for want of a better term.
Actor.
Yeah, you'll see yourself as an actor. And over these 3 years, then there's a change that happens. Can you just lead us through that change a little bit? What happened during those 3 years? I also became a little bit of a writer. So we sort of wrote with the Lemmings. We kind of wrote stuff. The Lemmings was a kind of a bit hit and miss because I wasn't very experienced at it. And was the people you were looking at that time who you respected, who were doing things that were similar as a craft?
Well, there were Incubus. But they've been established longer. They've been established since the 60s. There was the fringe theatre was very, very big in those days. Because the funding was there, so you had a lot of fringe theatre companies. But in terms of doing stuff out in the street, no, there wasn't much there. In terms of what I would call community theatre. There was a very good company, Covent Garden Community Theatre. They were brilliant. I think they were probably one of the best community theatres that I've ever seen.
And why do you rate them so much?
Because they knew how to get political content over in a really entertaining way. All their shows had a political message, but the musical skill, they were all very good musicians, and they were good actors as well. The musical skill was fantastic. The songs that they wrote were hilarious. I mean, they were really funny. And
do you find that having political content, having something that is in some way meant to either comment on, critique, or affect the world, why is that important in the work to you?
I think it is, yeah, because otherwise it's just kind of frivolous, isn't it? You know, if you haven't got something that is going to help people with their lives, or enlighten people, or kind of educate people, you know, if you're not doing something, I think, really positive socially with it, then it's just it's just kind of ego, isn't it?
I would personally agree with you, but a lot of people may have different, equally valid opinions, I'm sure.
That's all right. No, but I mean that's
something right now.
No, but I mean a lot of us. I mean, I've done loads of gratuitous stuff myself, so I'm not. I'm not getting on a high horse about it, but ideally, the stuff that I've, derived the most fulfillment from has been stuff that really has had some kind of content. I mean, even I'm jumping forward now to when I was like performing in Covent Garden.
Well, let's save jumping off there, but okay. we'll know that there's something about politics and performance to be spoken about.
Well, having content, proper content.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily have to be political, but it needs to have some kind of life content in there.
Yeah. So I really want to.
Am I allowed to have a sip of wine?
As much as you like. I really want to get into that now, but I am pressing of time. So just to keep the chronology going. 1980, then you begin working in Covent. This is the first street show you've done. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, and well, it's not the first because of the previous stuff, but but this is the first one where I'm kind of going out there as a one-man band kind of thing. But I'd actually, the show that I took there, I'd actually, before Covent Garden, I think it was in 1979, so it's a year beforehand, or in that year before, I started doing stuff down at Camden Lock, because they were having, you could busk down there, you could do stuff, and
oh great!
So I went down to Camden Lock, and I did this thing called the Spivs Show, which was largely written by Peter Leaborn. It was him and I used to do it when we were together in the Lemmings, and then he lived down in Brighton, and then he got offered a job with a company in Brighton, which was the Cliffhanger, brilliant company. So he did that. And he said, well, use the Spivs Show. You don't, you can just do it on your own. So it was for me. I used to go down to Camden Lock on a Sunday, do the Spivs Show, because it gave me beer money, and it meant I could go into Dingwalls and watch the jazz. Because I used to like my kind of Sunday morning lunchtime thing. With Lol Coxhill would be playing there, and like people like that. It was a good place to hang out.
Can you set the scene of Camden a little bit, because I'm sure Camden's changed a lot now to what it was then.
Well, Camden was the kind. I felt kind of safe performing it at Camden, because most of the kind of people that go down to Camden Lock, and particularly to Dingwalls, they were kind of an artsy kind of crowd. And so being an artsy crowd, and the fact that we've done, with Incubus and all these other things, we've done so many kind of art centres, I felt as though I was kind of performing to kind of like-minded people, and knew the kind of comedy that would work with them. So that was the Camden scene.
Did you feel like you were slowly preparing yourself for going on the street as a street performer? Were you slowly getting used to the idea? Was it something you were becoming more into?
I was actually, yeah. The thing that I was enjoying about it was that I thought there's not a lot of actors can do this. You know?
And why do you think that?
Well, because it's not when you're rehearsing for a play, you know, you rehearse it, then you come along and you've got your dress rehearsals, your technical rehearsals, and you know, and there's a whole kind of team behind it. And then come the first night, the people come in, they pay their money at the beginning, they come down, they kind of sit down, and then they're an audience, and they're not allowed to go out until the interval or until the play is finished. You don't have that in the open air, you know. It was like you've got to catch passers by,
and it sounds like that excited you. The idea.
Well, I kind of, yeah. There were that. I don't know if I could have put it into words then, but I knew that it was kind of doing something to me that was going to be valuable at some point. Although I didn't actually know quite what that was at that point, but I felt different. I thought, well, I know other actors can't do this.
Yeah. And so what was your first experience like then? So it's 1980. I assume the market's been refurbed now.
Yeah.
And you've arrived at this fresh new place. Were you one of the first people there? Was there a call out for people to go there?
There was, yeah. Alternative Arts sent out letters to people that they, you know, the performers that they worked with before.
Yeah.
And you know, so JJ Waller, I think I think he'd gone down there first of all doing stuff. Chris apparently said here. I didn't go down there. I didn't go down there in the first 2 or 3 months because I think I was over in Holland touring over there. So by the time I came back, and there was the juggler from Brighton,
Tim.
Tim back. Tim was there, and that was good seeing because he was the first person I saw when I went down.
And when you arrived, was there quite an atmosphere there? Was there no
there was no fucking atmosphere. I went down, there was nobody. Yeah, it was just like it was like Covent Garden, and people, people. It wasn't. Even then, it wasn't. It was new, so you know you had like people wandering through, but.
And so, how did it feel then?
I just thought there's not many. I thought it was going to be difficult, you know, because I thought it's a big space. Whereas when I was doing it at Camden Lock, you know, it's kind of narrow, so you know
you can pack them tighter, and it doesn't. You don't look as small. Maybe.
Yeah, and you kind of start off with they're all kind of compact when they start off.
Yeah.
So I just thought, this is going to be it can be a bit of a problem. I'd watched Tim, and that was nice seeing Tim down there because Tim, not at the same time as me, but he'd been with Incubus as well. So, Tim was in a different kind of show or plays to the ones that I was in. I mean, I think he was playing a juggler and kind of magician type character in the thing, so it suited him. But I saw him doing all his skill stuff, you know, and he got a little crowd around, and I was bloody hell, you know.
Did you feel a bit of pressure on yourself then?
Yeah, I did feel pressure. Yeah.
And did you learn to juggle the same as most?
No. I mean, what I did. So the first thing I thought, I'll do the Spiff show, you know, because that was a funny show, you know. Yeah. And hang on, I've got a fly in my drink. I want to rescue it.
Fly in my wine, darling.
I don't want to kill it. There we go.
It's got a stronger constitution than I have if it survived that.
Yeah. Well, it's probably a bit of a pissed fly. So, sorry, what was it? So, what was the question?
So, yeah, picking up juggling at beginning of
No, I didn't do that. I thought, I'll do the Spiff show because I kind of changed it a little bit when I was down in Camden. From Pete was just bloody brilliant, you know. But the Spiff show that we were doing was very kind of Monty Python-esque. Yeah. And I'd kind of grown up really in Petticoat Lane, so I'd seen the real Spiffs, you know. And I should have mentioned this as well.
Okay.
When I first left school and I started working in the city, and it was driving me fucking bonkers. I hated it, just being in an office, the claustrophobia of it. Lunchtime, I go down to Tower Hill, and there was Johnny Eagle, this gypsy who was doing like these like he balanced a gun. Sorry, I've got to keep looking at the screen.
Yeah.
But he's only just there. No, he's just there.
So Johnny Eagle.
Johnny Eagle, the gypsy Johnny Eagle, you know, he's a real Romany. And down at Tower Bridge there, in the square at the top, he'd do his, you call it street theatre if you want. It was one of these things that used to go around the gypsy horse fairs, you know. It was real kind of strongman stuff.
Yeah.
He'd get hold of a gun carriage wheel that weighed a couple of hundredweight, you know, and he'd lift it up and he'd balance it on his nose, you know, and then he'd get hold of a huge hat pin, stick it through there, you know, and then he'd do the same thing. He'd put it through his breast, stick a hat pin through there, and then he'd get hold of a fob watch on a chain, you know. And he'd snarl at the people and he'd shout at the people, you know. And he'd look really dangerous. He'd go over this fob watch on the chain and he'd swallow it, you know. And then he'd grab a person and they had to listen. And he'd thrust them to, and they had to listen to him. They had to listen to this watch ticking, you know, drop it down there.
Wow.
So I had seen Johnny Eagle, you know, and I love Johnny Eagle. So
how did that make you feel as a performer, seeing this kind of performance?
No, but I wasn't a performer then. I saw him when I first left school, you know, when I was working in the city. So that was in my head. So when I kind of changed the way I was doing the spivs, so took it a bit more away from like Python-esque into more kind of threatening, you know, a bit more threat to it, and you know, a bit more like the real spivs that you get down in Petticoat Lane. I really, really, really started to get some enjoyment out of that, you know, and I think the audiences did too.
And why do you find making it harsher works better for you?
Well, that's because I trained as a method actor, you know, and I didn't. I was kind of against affectation. Okay. You know, I didn't really. It just, for me, it was going to be more interesting to see if I could just get a little bit of that real kind of spivvy street edge, you know.
You wanted to feel sincere.
It was kind of a balance. It was a kind of a balance between. I couldn't take it too far down because there were different, you know, kids and there were a different kind of crowd, you know. So, but I still had that kind of edge in there to make that work. You know? So
what was your first show in Covent Garden when Covent Garden has been 2 months open?
So I did the spiff show down there.
Your actual first show?
First show. Yeah, I remember doing it, and it was a Sunday. I went down there on a Sunday, and I, you know, started hollering around, roll up, ladies and gentlemen, and see the only show of its kind in the Occidental world, you know, giving it all that kind of stuff. And I got a few people around, and it's very silly, the spiff show, good funny stuff in there. I probably got about 20 or 30 people around, which I thought was really good. I made about 7 quid, and I thought, in those days, that got me. That meant I could stay in the pub all afternoon, you know. So. The first show you got. Yeah, so I mean that felt really. So I thought, oh yeah, that's great, that, you know. And Tim was doing better hats when he did his, because he was doing like juggling and that. But I thought, I'm fucked if I'm going to learn all this juggling.
So it wasn't an active thing of I will use my skill as an actor. It was that I don't want to bloody learn all this hard juggling.
Well, no, I was using my skill as an actor.
But I mean, in terms of But
I wasn't interested in. I mean, at East 15, you know, we had to learn clowning and juggling, but they were the things that I just didn't float my boat at all. You know, I was much more into. I didn't want to be a clown. I fucking hated clowns, you know.
Why did you hate clowns?
What?
Why did you hate clowns?
I don't know. I think I found them boring. You know, when I was a kid, I used to like the clowns in the circus, but it was at East 15.
Was it the fact that the clown? I mean, I don't know the clowns of your era, but did it seem like clowns? There wasn't much jeopardy. They weren't challenging much. They were very safe.
I'm kind of going by the kind of clowns that I used to see. Like with Incubus, one of the things that we were doing all this touring around Great Britain, but we used to do all the big open country fairs and stuff. and you'd always get these fucking wanky clowns. You know, they weren't funny, you know, but they put like a red nose on, do kind of stuff. It just drove me nuts, you know. I mean, Paddy was great. Paddy Fletcher, fucking one of the fairs, because we'd invent characters, walkabout characters, you know, and he'd just come up with a fucking classic. It was Psycho the Clown. And he hated kids. It was just fucking brilliant. Am I allowed to say fucking?
Yeah, you can say whatever you like, mate. And so, you're not doing the shackles and the
no, not at all. No, I was doing a spiff show. Anyway, so this will get you into the shackles, all right? Yeah. So I'm doing that, and we're going about £7, £8, you know. Yeah. And then one day, it's just me and Tim, you know, and occasionally JJ would come up at the weekend to do stuff. JJ Waller, do you know JJ?
Yeah, but I know the name at least.
Yeah, you should interview him. He's a brilliant guy. Yeah. And JJ was the slickest of us, you know. Like he'd been doing his show down on the beach in Brighton for a while, you know. So he was very polished. So I think we all learned a lot from JJ. You know, I certainly did. I know lots of other people.
And so it was a schooling environment, even from the beginning, early days. Yeah. Okay, because that's one of the things I think that Covent Garden really has been, you know, and has propagated to other places, is this idea that you learn as a group, that the pitch is the workshopping place.
Yeah.
You know, and it's nice that even in the beginning, it seems like that was still happening.
I wouldn't say like a workshopping place, but it was. Watching JJ do his stuff, you kind of go, wow, you know, because it like real kind of panache and polish to the stuff that he's doing, and I mean, what I learned from JJ was to take care of the little things, you know.
What do you mean by that?
Well, always know where your props are, you know. So if you're going to get a game, bang it, you go straight to it. You know, don't open your suitcase and not be able to find it and mumble around. You know, just little technical things. You know, have things where you know where you can deal with them.
Yeah. And so as you've been developing and as you're watching the shows, how does your work develop personally? How are you developing yourself and your character and what you want to do out there?
In leaps and bounds. All right. So it wasn't gradual. I think it was more in leaps and bounds. And the first leap was when so it was me and Tim were the only performers down there. Occasional appearances from JJ, and this other geezer turns up, and I mean the Spiff show was a very well written show. You know, I mean Pete wrote most of that, but it was you know, I added a few bits in. I was very proud of the content. It was extremely well written and very, very funny. So that had good content, and of course, you know, the juggling was fantastic that he was doing. And anyway, so this geezer turns up, and like he can always string two sentences together, and and he goes out there and he downs some methylated spirits or whatever, and he's got like a torch. He blows this huge flame, you know, and then he breaks some bottles on the thing, and he says, "I am the mighty somebody." I can't remember the fucking mighty Tarzan or whatever his name was. I don't know. And he said, "What I'm gonna do?" He said, "I'm gonna blow fire out of my mouth, and I'm gonna lower down there on this glass, and someone can stand on top of me." You know, I thought, "Gee, well, this is really polished, isn't it?" You know, he got this fucking enormous crowd. I thought, Jesus, you know, I've got the show with all this kind of witty dialogue in it, and you know, and this, and he must have made about 40 quid, you know. I thought, oh, it's just a fluke, innit, you know, just a one-off, you know. And then, like, he carried on doing it, you know, and there was no entertainment there at all. He blew a sheet of flames, broke the bottles, laid out someone's story, and that was it, and he bottled. You know? So I really started to think about it then. So that's, I was still doing the Spiff show, but I started planning this other one in my head. I thought, I want to keep the Spiff character because, the language was, I love good language, you know, so, and of course, what else I'd noticed while I was doing the shows was the number of Americans that were turning up.
And what sort of years are we looking at now? So
this is 1980, 81.
so still 1980.
Yeah. I mean, this is like in the very just I'm talking about the first couple of months. This is all happening, and I'm aware of the fact that there's quite a lot of Americans, you know, and they tend to tip. they put more in the hat than others, you know.
Oh, so it's American tourists turning up, not American performers.
No, tourists. No performers yet. You know. So anyway, to cut a long story short, because it'd be all bloody day otherwise. I'm still doing the Spiff show, but I'm plotting the other one at home. You know, and I thought I've got to do something that's kind of spectacular. You know, because that's something as stupid as fucking lying on glass. You know, so I thought I'll eat razor blades and pull them out on eat 5 razor blades, put some cotton in, pull them out on a string. But I wasn't content with doing that, because I thought, well, yeah, that will get them round, but the kind of spirit and the entertainment, I mean, the fact that I knew there were Americans there, I decided to do the half-slur speech from King Henry V.
Oh, wow.
Whilst doing this trick with razor blades.
Yeah.
So, do you know that one? Once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more, or close the wall up with our English dead. In peace, there's nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in, so I'm doing all that, and I'm chopping bits of apple off with the razor blade, eating the razor blade, but still delivering the speech. You know, got the cotton, kind of put it in there, and when it gets to the bit where it goes, "Cry God for Harry, England, and St. George," and I pull them out one by one, tied to the thing. That I did, and it was I've never heard anything like that in the Spiff show. You know, it was this huge, a big crowd as well, because I was eating razor blades. But the Americans loved it, and then I added another stupid trick with just making a lighted cigarette disappear into somebody's garment. You know, but again,
do you have any tips for anyone who might want to do that trick?
What, the razor blades?
No, tips for a cigarette out on shirts.
Tips. That was a joke, wasn't it?
It was.
Have you used it before?
Yeah.
That's a good one. It says your battery is running low.
Yeah, you keep going.
I'll keep going. All right. So I did that, and I did this other trick, which involved the audience a lot. You know, and that was fun, because I again, the language thing was important. So I wanted to keep people impressed with the silliness of the tricks, you know, but they're bold tricks. I wanted to keep that classy language in there. So when I was doing the one with the making the cigarette disappear, you know, I might want to use a coat from a woman or something, or, you know, so the spiel, usually what was going on, you know, somebody go, "Oh, I'm looking now for a volunteer from the audience," you know. I thought, how fucking boring is that, you know? So I used a Harold Pinter line, you know, and so I would say, "I'm looking for a woman of the most organized and refined sensibilities." Now I'll grab a geezer and pull him out, you know. So, but it was that very rich kind of language. Is it still working? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was that very rich kind of language. So I got my volunteer out, but I was using that's from a Harold Pinter play, No Man's Land. You know? So I kept injecting like beautiful phrases and language in that show. So that made it work. You know?
Yes, and what it sounds like, you have this beautiful mixture then of a quite high level culture being delivered by somebody who is presenting something as quite low level.
A Spiff.
Exactly that. And so, since I feel we're pressing for time, and because all the difficulties we have with technological stuff, a lot of time's been taken, I want to at least get up to, before the end of the interview, the great escape, the escape with your head in a bucket of water.
Oh yeah, that so I got these manacles and chains and things that you could escape from, because I thought, you know, that escape is going to be.
And where did these ideas come from? Because you don't have the luxury that people do nowadays of sitting on pitch with 20 other performers and just getting routines through osmosis. Where did you get the idea from?
Well, the idea for escaping with my head in the bucket of water was I went into a magic. I was down in Cornwall doing a play, and there was a magic shop, and And I had an idea that I might be able to do some, you know, I needed some other big thing. So I thought, oh, maybe, it's, you know, I asked the guy to show me the magic shop, and he showed me these chains and things. So I bought them, and in the Spiv show, the way we used to finish the Spiv show was we would sing "God Save the Queen," but with our heads in a bucket of water, you know. And so, you know, that was it. And the bucket of water also featured in. We used to do this bit, so we're selling stuff, you know. And here we have all the way from mysterious Japan, an original Swiss watch. Now, I can guarantee you that this watch is working just as well up here as it does underwater. You don't believe me? Bring me a bucket of water. Someone brings a bucket of water. I take hold of the watch. He takes hold of the watch. I dip it in the bucket. He dips it in the bucket. I splish it about. He splishes it about. I splosh it about. He splashes it about. I throw it on the floor. He throws it on the floor. And he jumps up and down all over the watch. And I can guarantee to you that this watch is working just as well now as before we stuck it in the bucket. You know? So the bucket had featured heavily in the Spiv show, and I was using the Spiv character, although, you know, all different dialogue this time. And I just thought, the bucket, I'll escape with, I'll do Harry Houdini's, I'll break Harry Houdini's record of because Houdini was chained up and got thrown off a boat or something, or off the end of a pier. And, so I thought, it can't be more stupid than that. So.
And it makes complete sense hearing it now when you have at that same time the mixture of kind of high culture and low cultural presentation.
Yeah.
To have something which is high culture escape presented in a bucket.
Yeah. So you know, it was great fun doing it. But what
was it like when you first did it? Because you got the idea, you thought, well,
the Spiv show, it worked fairly well. You know, it worked fairly well because I knew I was going to enjoy it myself. So I was enjoying it, and that they were enjoying it. And I think we should bring kids out as well. And but again, with everything that I was doing, other performers, some other performers had turned up by this point, but I didn't just like the way of using kids. You know, I wanted the kids to kind of, whenever I could throw the limelight on kids for being funny, I do that. And I remember one day I got these kids out, and you know, you ask them, how old you are, what do you want to really go out, sort of stuff like that. And so I was asking, going down the line, and